Alright, so this is the answer video for homework 2-2. And if you remember, the way we recommended that you do this assignment is by sorting first by state and then by temperature. So this means that we can actually just look at the first document for each state and know that that is the month high. So the assignment for homework 2-2 was to set the month high field to true in the document with the highest temperature and do that for each state individually. So let's take a look at the solution. Alright, so this is our solution for homework 2-2, and our goal is to find the highest temperature for each state and set a month high field to true in the corresponding document. So what we're doing here is we're just connecting to MongoDB, and we're doing a find with an empty query selector, and then sorting on state, ascending, doesn't matter whether it's ascending or descending, and temperature, descending. So this is going to give us a cursor with this sort order, and we're calling toArray on that cursor to get all of the documents back in one big array all at once. And then down here we're iterating our documents array, and we're actually looking for these month highs. So the way we do that is we set state originally to an empty string, and then we start iterating our documents, and when we see that state is not equal to docs I state, we push our months high, and then we set state equals to docs I state. So this will only get triggered when we're either at the beginning of our iteration and state was empty, or we're transitioning to a new state. So we're actually adding to this month highs array all the documents that are at the beginning of a transition to a new state, which happen to be the documents with the highest temperature because we're sorting on temperature decreasing within each state. So that's how we get the month highs, but let's take a look at how we actually update these documents that correspond to our month highs with the months highs field, which was the assignment for this homework. Alright, so down here we have the loop that's updating our month high documents. So note that we actually could have used a multi-update for this example because we could have actually constructed a query with the $in operator, but I wanted to show an example of how the asynchronous model is different from the synchronous model. So in this case we have our array of month highs, and it's going to be an array of 4 documents because we have 4 different states. We're actually just iterating through this loop and calling .update on every month high. And for every month high, we pass the $set with month high to true as the update operator. And you may notice that we're doing a little bit of extra work here because we're actually counting the number of times this callback has been called. And the reason we're doing that is because we shouldn't actually close the database connection until we have a response from all of our updates. So what we're doing here is we're setting the number of callbacks to 0, and we're making sure that the number of callbacks we've had so far is not yet equal to month highs.length. And then once it is equal to month highs.length, we can safely close the database connection, knowing that we received responses for all the updates that we sent out. So this may seem like we're doing some extra work here because of the asynchronous model, and in some ways that's actually true. If we were doing this synchronously, we could just say db.collection.update, 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 and then db.close at the end, knowing that by the time we got to that line of code, all of our updates had returned. But the problem with that is that means we have to wait for a response from each update before we can send the next one. So we're doing each update synchronously and waiting for the full round trip. Whereas here, what we're doing actually is we're actually just sending this update, returning immediately, and continuing the next iteration of our loop. So in each iteration, all we do is really send the update, and we don't actually have to wait for the full round trip to the server. So this allows us to fire off the 4 updates and get the responses as they come back, rather than waiting for each update to complete before sending the next one. So that's one of the advantages of the asynchronous model, is that we can dispatch a lot of I/O operations in parallel without having to wait for the results of each one to dispatch the next one. So for this little bit of extra work and little bit of extra overhead, we actually have a lot better parallelism in terms of our I/O operations in a single thread. Alright, so that's the answer to homework 2-2. So we're finding the month highs by iterating through our documents, and then we're updating all of our documents with the month high field using the $set update operator.